You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but you don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel Show is produced weekly for your growth and enjoyment. Listen to us on podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many more. You can also watch the show on YouTube by visiting realmenfeel.org/YouTube. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Your reviews, comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in our Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant, and tonight we're joined once again by the most appearances winner by far, and this appearance puts him even further lead, but Mr. Anthony Simeone. Yeah, so your first appearance of 2019, or is it?
Thank you.
Wait, oh no, it's already your second. Yeah, we did the Gillette panel show. That was.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Did it. Man, I'm killing it.
Yeah, you're on more than I can even keep track of. But let's give you your proper, as if you've never been here before, introduction. So Anthony Simeone is a writer, speaker, and self-described heroism advocate with over 2 decades of experience in the practical application of literature, philosophy, psychology, and other disciplines. His Live the Hero philosophy offers a life path for use in overcoming obstacles. And you wrote a series of articles at the Good Men Project in January, I believe, about the introduction to this Live the Hero philosophy. So that's really what I wanted to explore in today's show. Does that work for you?
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm ready.
Right, cool. So first, like what started your interest in heroes?
Yeah, and I mean it's good that we're getting an update from. I think I did an interview initially with you and Appio like a while back, so it's good to kind of revisit because since then I've kind of lived the hero, this whole life philosophy, which I really started with for myself, just to pull myself out of like a depression and out of mania and things like that, my own mental health issues, as time's gone on, doing the rest of my responsibilities in life, the day job, the wife, the kids, and everything, trying to fulfill this purpose that I feel called to, I've kind of fleshed out the program a little more, really I'm going to delving into different areas that I feel like can amalgamate with it because like you said in the introduction you just gave me, there's all kinds of disciplines and ideas and philosophies that I'm aggregating into this that helped me, and I really feel this calling. And in this positive psychology class, they went through this whole thing about nuns and how they feel this calling and this haunting. The haunting is the word. And I've been haunted by this for years. So, I'm still pushing towards getting this and codifying it. So these posts I posted in January are sort of me establishing this framework in a more solid way for people to experience and to utilize and actually put into practice. So that was really is that, I'm like, listen, I got to get this into a more concrete form. A book, fingers crossed, someday will hopefully follow where I'll expand on these. But this is like the structure of things, like the most basic skeletal structure of things.
Cool. I don't think I realized it that this was, kind of the framework was created for you because you were feeling in the muck.
Yeah, It was, I needed to do something. It was sink or swim. I was doing traditional therapy. I was, taking medication, for after being diagnosed with being bipolar, everything fell apart. So in the true hero's journey fashion, I hit this abyss moment. I hit the bottom of this curve. And we'll go into that as this call goes on or as this episode goes on, because I want to delve into sort of the structure of what I outlined. But yeah, it really was, I hit my abyss moment. I hit my dark spot in life, the lowest point in my life. And I just started clawing my way back up. And I was like, listen, therapy's great. Traditional therapy is great for, healing pathology of the mind. medication is great, you know, to a point. But then I needed something else. I needed something that would supplement what I was already getting. Like I needed to have something that encouraged me and enlightened me and made me feel like I was purposeful and fulfilled. So it was just like something inside of me was saying, okay, you love Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces, Hero's Journey. It's not just a cool, the reason why it's a cool way to tell stories, the reason why film people from George Lucas onward and before him have been ripping off Joseph Campbell and his motto myth, that what all this is based off of. The reason why it's getting ripped off is not just it's a cool story. It's a cool story structure because it resonates with us so deeply as human beings, and that's why mythologies, going back to the distant ancient past, follow this structure. You know, we need an ideal to strive for. We need, you know, so heroism isn't just like, oh, you run into a burning building. You know, mythical traditional heroism isn't about just running into a building, saving some people, and then disappearing back into your life. It's, you know, the ancients created mythology and heroic myth in particular to uplift society. You say, men and women, you can strive towards this ideal. You may not always attain it, but this is a structure for life. This is something that is not just for your entertainment and you walk away and go about your life and it's a structure for life. So, and now philosophies and, you know, are confirmed that over the years, and scientific disciplines and scientifically backed disciplines like positive psychology are taking what we would consider in the past humanistic psychology and humanistic things like mythology and are giving scientific rigor to it. And they're testing things that we get, say, from mythology or from literature or or philosophy, all these other disciplines that I've trying to amalgamate and pull together into my philosophy. Yeah, that I, you know, created for myself, and now I'm just a regular guy, just a guy from Philly. I'm nobody special, and I'm like, I'm haunted and called to pass this onward, and that's it leads me to today talking to you again about this topic that I love so much. So
cool. So the notion of how you touched on it, how this is a mindset, not a moment. So heroism is not the burst of courage and lifting the car and saving the baby and putting out the fire and rescuing orphans. It's more a day-to-day mindset and approach to living.
right. I mean, but see, that activity, like going to war and running into danger, running towards danger against all of our animalistic instinct, you know, the against all of that fight flight response that wants to protect us, going against that with our rational human divine spark. Yes, that's the tip of the iceberg. When you see someone running into that burning building, when you see first responders running towards the buildings collapsing at 9/11, soldiers going into battle, you know, people stepping up and defending others against muggings, you know, that is an expression and is a moment of heroism, no doubt. All of those things are expressions of heroism. But what, you know, one of my other favorite inspirations, Phil Zimbardo of Stanford Prison Experiment fame, he's moved on to heroism science. And, you know, heroism is banal, just like evil can be banal. You know, there is an everyday aspect of it where, you know, if you take and strip down heroism to its basic fundamental units, it's about uplifting yourself and others. It's about overcoming the fight flight response. It's about overcoming our animalistic side and gaining control and discipline over the self and tapping into the divine self. So it really is, and it's not a moment, it is a mindset. But that mindset can culminate in moments. It does all the time, and they can be dramatic rescue moments, or they can be helping someone across the street, or, you know, going up to a conservative, if you're me as a more liberal minded person, going up to a conservative person and saying, hey, we disagree, but you know what, you're still human, I'm still human. That's a moment of heroism, especially in our time now with the division we're seeing.
Okay. So it's also not like an ego trip. This isn't just pumping yourself up with false bravado. That this is, it's more in the core. It's really understanding your being.
That's part of it. Yeah. I mean, you really have to know yourself first. So the first hero's journey that we all take is really within, and we take it constantly. I mean, this is a cycle that goes on and on. You know, if you can see your entire life as a great big hero's journey from birth to death, but then imagine along the rim of that circle that is your entire life, there's wheels within wheels. There's circles, limitless circles, you know, along that journey that are the small decision moments and decision points in your life where you can act heroically, and again, not putting yourself in danger. Heroism doesn't require putting yourself in danger. It requires stepping beyond your normal world, your normal behavior, and stepping beyond the status quo of your society sometimes to change that society for the better. And sometimes that comes out as like an expression in wartime or whatever, and where there's actual physical harm possible. But most of the time it should and can culminate in just supporting your society in a positive way rather than being a force of entropy and destruction. So, and that's the constant interplay of our lives, is that tug of war, that yin and yang, against, between our divine selves, our divine angelic selves that has that spark, our better angels, like Lincoln said, and our more basic animal nature, that what we would call in positive psychology is the paleo-mammalian cortex, the monkey mind, that fight or flight, which is there to protect us and protected our ancestors from the saber-tooth tigers. But we're firing it all the time now. We're through TV and our cell phones, we're triggering our stress response, that fight-flight response. We're inviting the saber-tooth tiger into our houses, so that's why a negativity bias is so strong. So we need this. I see heroism, the heroism mindset and mentality, as being an antidote to that sort of knee-jerk reaction that we're all having in our society here in the West. So
cool. And one thing I think might be a common misunderstanding is that, like, heroes are perfect and they do everything right. But in mythology and story and in daily practice, is perfection part of heroism?
It really isn't. Heroes are human. And really, when it comes down to it, is yes, heroes are fallible. And even in mythology, if you go back to any of the heroes, Hercules is one of my favorite examples. I think he was duped into killing his whole family. He was tricked by, I think, a goddess. It might have been Hera. I think Hercules, if I'm remembering my mythology off the top of my head, it's mythology test time for me. I think Hera was his stepmother, and Zeus had fornicated with someone else, and Hercules popped out eventually. And then I think Hera tricked him, into killing his whole family. And, he was by no means perfect or infallible or above being tricked like that. So the lesson of mythology, and heroic mythology in particular, teaches us that, the heroes are flawed and you have to be okay with that. Right.
So part of the heroic journey is facing and overcoming your own flaws and mistakes.
Yeah. And really, that's what, again, as I was saying earlier, you need to do that first. You need to do that first. You need to go through, and then you can start helping other people. You have to kind of, set yourself in a good mindset and in this heroic mindset before you can help others.
So what are some ways that anyone can start kind of creating or living this heroic mindset?
Okay, so it starts with mindset. There's 3 sections that I broke things up into for just this purpose of what I'm doing with Live the Hero. So just for the edification of your audience, okay, this is my handy dandy visual aid here. Can you see that? Is that coming into resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the hero's journey in a basic format. Okay, so, but you can chunk this down into 3 major areas, and we'll get into that when it comes to actually, once you set the mindset, you can get into this. So this is the hero's journey.
Okay, and just for the sake of people only listening to this and not seeing this this video,
that's right.
It's the call to action. It's a circle. So it's
a circle.
Recurring theme of being called to something, overcoming something, and starting anew from a higher place, from a more empowered place now.
Right. So, and then, but it can get really complicated. And again, I'm showing another. So it can get as complicated as you want. So, Joseph Campbell was a very scholarly man, and there was lots of bits and pieces to the journey of the heroes. And if you're familiar with, any kind of, like, say, especially Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite examples. If you're familiar with the course of the action of Lord of the Rings, there's all these little segments of things that happen along the path. Those aren't important for your day-to-day life. So really, to start with, let's start with the mindset, and then I'll tell you how I chunk down that circular hero's journey into 3 major parts. But so starting with the mindset, if you're going out into the world, there's things that I consider that these are non-negotiable. So number 1 is you have to stick with what we would call the golden rule. The absolute foundational principle to me is the golden rule. Treat other people as you would want to be treated. That is non-negotiable. So that, my friend, in our day and age, is one of the most difficult calls to action. That requires heroism in and of itself, it seems like these days. We're so dominated by that negativity bias, as is pointed out in, the discipline of positive psychology now. We've really delved into the biology of our brains, and our paleo-mammalian cortex is that seat of the fight or flight response. And it's so much more powerful and persistent than our positivity. That's why we have mindfulness. That's why we have self-awareness, is that it's a constant practice. It's a lifelong practice that we're not taught how to do and cultivate, of consciousness, of awareness, of mindfulness.
So this negativity bias, it's not just sloppy thinking. It's not someone being lazy in the mind. This is truly part of our nature. It's built into us.
Yeah, it was evolved to save us. It has a purpose. It's a good thing, but there's always too much of a good thing. So yes, our survival instinct served the purpose for millennia to keep us alive. It still does today. If you're going to get hit by a bus, your body kicks in, your adrenaline kicks in and makes you jump out of the way. But the thing is that we're constantly stressing it now. We're constantly firing it off with all of this negative news that we are getting. And we have such an attention bias to negativity, it's overpowering. So what the hero's journey is capable of doing is as a tool for a self-awareness. And we really need to come back to the sense of community that our ancestors had, and telling stories around the campfire, and remembering that the foundation of the world is everyone. The people are what's important.
Okay.
And especially we have a problem with that, especially in America, because of the mythology of, speaking of another mythology, of the rugged individual. Mm-hmm. So the rugged individual is this illusory sort of mindset where we worship sort of the celebrity of the instant success. So that's why celebrities and people, we look at them, we say, we want what they have. We want what they have. There's this illusion of a self-made person, but really we can't, no one is self-made entirely. We're self-motivated. Mm-hmm. You have to be self-motivated to succeed, but if you have a business, customers paid you money to make you successful. A banker lent you money as well to start your business. So the golden rule has to be the foundation, and this realization that we're all in this together. That's non-negotiable to me.
Okay.
And then from there, it's remembering that biology of our negativity bias and our need for mindfulness to come up to the surface, and we have to actively use that. So those are two of the foundational principles.
Just because I come from a long history of negativity and thought it was like my fault or something. So recognizing the negativity bias doesn't mean you're allowed to be negative. It's just to recognize that it'll take kind of your conscious effort to kind of be more positive, to see the best, to see a solution.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, I mean, the negativity bias is still a part of us. It's that, again, it's that evolved self-defense mechanism that we all have. It's just that we don't have as many physical dangers. The saber-tooth tigers are gone and things like that. Right. But it's. So
is it kind of is it something we have to learn to ignore our first kind of instinct when it's negative, when it's run away from something?
It's not necessarily ignore it, it's embrace it. It's more like taking it in. We talk about some mystic traditions, and even some psychiatrists and psychologists talk about the shadow part of us. So really that's part of the shadow of us, is this negativity bias that's biologically an imperative that so we have this old brain that we're still dealing with, but we have this new world. And so it's part of our shadow. So you have to embrace it. You have to acknowledge it, because otherwise it's going to be that proverbial monster inside of you. If you don't, it kind of wants to be noticed and acknowledged. And if you just give it a hug and a pat on the head and say, okay, negativity bias, I know you're here to protect me. I honor you. I embrace you, and I take you into me. And then when you manage that, yes, you can step beyond your normal everyday reactions and knee-jerk reactions to the world.
Okay.
And once you embrace that.
So embracing it doesn't mean following it.
No, it just means accepting it and taking its suggestions under advisement, It doesn't necessarily mean, so you're not excising it, because that's unnatural, and you're not just blindly following it, because that is unnatural, but a lot of people do that, and thus the reason why we have so much discord. So it's sort of a balance.
Okay.
and it's accepting that as part of yourself and being okay with it.
Cool. And then the third section of the basics of the mindset I know is being comfortable with uncertainty. So, everybody wants, they're staying in their comfort zone and to be sure of things. So, how does the mindset help you accept and embrace life's inherent lack of certainty?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that certainty is at the root of a lot of the atrocities and strife and struggles that we've had over the millennia. I think that whenever we fight too hard for certainty, it necessarily comes with the demonized other.
Mhm.
It's we have to be okay with the fact that we have free will and free action and agency in the world. That comes at the price of things never being certain. And the animal part of us, the paleomammalar cortex that gives rise to that fight flight response, it craves certainty. It wants certainty so bad. But there's a part of us that also evolved to be searchers and seekers and to find out what's beyond the next horizon. So it's that, but that's a dynamic tension to be celebrated. So that's, the uncertainty of what's beyond the horizon and the comforts of home will always be at odds. And that's a good thing. It's what turns the wheel of life in our existence. So, that the whole thing with the hero's journey is coming out of the certainty of your known world. So our ancestors had to deal with this. They had to. That's why it's built into the hero's journey. You start in the known world, and some need within you or within your society or both requires that you step beyond the status quo, that you step beyond the pale of your known world and go out. So it's built into us, but we have civilization wants us to have this illusion of certainty and of almost smug certainty. That's why we see so many people, especially in the internet age, my opinion beats your truth, or the truth of the universe. So that's why we have flat earthers and blah, and all these other conspiracy theories. I feel like human beings, when we give in too much and we succumb too much to the need for certainty, we say, the world is flat, people suck, that's it. I've ordered the universe. The universe is now a nice clean box, and that creates sickness. That's why people become sick mentally and spiritually, really, when you're too fixated on making the world too safe.
Right.
There is risk inherent in the world, so you need to be okay with it, because if you're not okay with it, you start saying, okay, the reason why the world is uncertain is because of you people. That's an easy solution to persecute and commit genocide against other people if they're supposedly the root of your problems.
Right.
So
it's the problem of black or white thinking, all or nothing, and trying to
exactly.
put things in boxes, sharp divisions, and yeah, life is gray. Life is uncertain, and it's neat what you said about our desire for more and seeking and learning. And it hadn't dawned on me that, oh yeah, if I was certain about everything, well, why would I ever open a book or see a movie or try to learn something new if I was certain about the answer already? And so for many people, certainty keeps people stuck where they are.
Exactly, and our ancestors knew that. So that's why they created mythologies around the world, like at an instinctual gut spiritual level, whatever you want to use. Our ancestors knew that certainty and stagnation is death. So that's why Joseph Campbell, when he started studying all these world cultures, he saw, oh my God, this pattern is repeated in the stories of all these disparate cultures that had no connections to each other, unless you believe in ancient aliens and they were all connected by spaceships or portals or whatever. But withstanding that, there's something instinctual in all of us that has this pattern in our very souls of this hero's journey. And a big part of it is, staying away from certainty, just like, and the Maori say in New Zealand, what is the most important thing in the world? It is people, it is people, it is people. So those are the three foundational things in the mindset of the hero's journey. It's people are paramount, including yourself. You have to be okay with certainty. And now I'm drawing a blank because I'm getting excited because I'm already thinking about the next part of it.
So it's be okay with the negativity bias.
Negativity bias,
and
right?
With uncertainty as
uncertainty.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Because
Cool.
Now you got me thinking about the next part. So
all right. So
my brain's going too fast. All right.
Be present. Take a breath.
Cool.
And so I'll lead you there. Maybe you're facing it, but so how do heroes overcome obstacles?
Okay. So instead of, looking at all the little different points of the hero's journey as described by Joseph Campbell on his sometimes complex interpretation of the hero's journey with all the different little parts, you can chunk it down into three major areas. And this is my offering as this framework for approaching any situation in life, big or small. So the first, I call it the call cycle. So call stands for challenge, action, and lessons learned, right? Challenge, actions, lessons learned, basically. So the first step is the call or the challenge. So in the beginning of any adventure is the call to adventure.
Right.
And we can refuse it, and often we do. And most of the time in mythology, heroes refuse the call. And that's, again, our need for comfort. We have to fight that. So, Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, he freaks out when all the dwarves start coming in, but Gandalf knows that Bilbo needs this, and they need Bilbo. So, all the dwarves come in and ransack his house and eat all his food, and he kind of passes out for a little while, literally. And then, he says, I can't do this. I'm just a hobbit. I'm a nobody. But then he eventually realizes, okay, I know that there's more to the world than this, so I need to go. So, so for the first step for this challenge, your boss gives you a big deadline. Someone kind of walks into you on the street, and your kids are freaking out. You're getting into an argument with your wife. These are the call to adventure. Are you going to succumb to your baser nature, and you're going to succumb to your fight flight response, your monkey mind, and are you going to just react in a knee-jerk way, or are you going to use mindfulness and your knowledge that you were meant for more, and other people matter, and being okay with uncertainty and understanding the biology of your negativity bias? So you're going to say, okay, are you going to be the one that hands out the olive branch first and go, okay, I'm sorry I bumped into you, guy on the street. Kids, okay, let's talk this out. I'm not just going to yell at you. Honey, let's sit down, let's talk. Okay, boss, I'm not going to call you a jerk that you just gave me this huge deadline that's due in a few days and you didn't give me any time to do it. I'm going to rise to this challenge. So we all have these challenges. So like I said, you have that big circle of your whole life, but along the rim, there's all these little circles of all the different challenges that limitlessly happen to you throughout your life. So the challenge is the first part. So
and it sounds like the key with a challenge is to slow down, not simply react out of habitual patterns. So it's just again, like we demoed in the show, just take a breath. All right, what's next? What am I doing? What's right in front of me, as opposed to jumping ahead from where we are.
Exactly, and this is possible. And you're not going to be perfect. In positive psychology, they have techniques. You do that. Breathing is amazing, just biologically. Yes, you take that breath. You wiggle your toes. There's all different kinds of tricks that you can get present. It's all about being present. And I know mindfulness is such a buzzword now, and it's become almost meaningless to some people. They're like, oh, namaste, whatever, another mindfulness thing. But it really is about raising your neocortex, your newer part of your brain, and being conscious of, and again, kind of countermanding this knee-jerk paleomammalial cortex, your older brain's knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. It's like if anything becomes a cliche, that's just mindful. Yeah. How you doing? Well, yeah. If you're just saying it, not doing it, then you've lost the whole point.
Exactly. Okay. So then step 2 of call. So the A in the word call, the acronym call, is action. So there's such a thing in, again, positive psychology is my new jam, basically. There's growth mindset and fixed mindset. So we can go into a fixed mindset where we can start doing self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oh, I'm never going to overcome this. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to accomplish that, for this reason, this reason, this reason. So that's the decision point of action. You can either give in to that fixed mindset, or you can pick up the sword of the challenge, and pick up a sword as a tool, as a symbol for a tool of the growth mindset, the solution-based mindset.
Is the fixed mindset ever beneficial, or is that the negativity bias? Does having a fixed mind about anything actually help us?
It's tapped into the negativity bias. It's all about being, it's also called the judger versus learner. So the negativity bias, the judger path, and the fixed mindset is all about squelching your potential and sort of keeping you in that comfort zone. Because if you don't strive, the false perception is if you never strive, you'll never fail, and then therefore you won't face ridicule. And that's another big motivator, is the fear of being the out person and the fear of in-group, out-group, So that's a lot of the reasons why people don't like public speaking. It's not because they're afraid of, people per se, they're afraid of judgment. So it's, judgment and learning and growth and fixed, those are huge motivators. So
do you think it's possible? Can some enlightened being have a fixed mindset about how everything is a growth opportunity? Can they, be merged? And I am certain of my welcomeness of uncertainty.
All right, so now we're getting kind of meta here, man. I don't know. This might be above my pay grade. What do you think? Are you getting at something, or are you just honestly inquiring? Or
no, I'm like, is the Dalai Lama? Is he? Can someone be so used to growth that it becomes their new fixed mind? That's what I mean. Like, is it always one or the other, or can they? Oh wait, I'm so habitually used to seeing it as growth that it becomes my fixed mindset.
No,
maybe not fixed, or my more automatic mindset.
I think if you're truly in a growth mindset, you are in the space where you're like, my ideas might not be correct, or sometimes there is no action that needs to be taken. Sometimes you need to just be fixed. And so I don't know. I think it's kind of a little contradictory, but I mean, yeah, I think the fixed mindset is sort of like rigid and unchanging and stagnant versus dynamic. And, in the growth mindset, you can also allow for yourself to potentially be wrong. Of course, you're being open-minded that you're like, honestly, people in the fixed mindset are the ones that are usually, they stand stubbornly in their belief system. They're not the ones that just question themselves and undermine themselves. I think those people are also in the fixed mindset area where they debilitate themselves with doubt. I think it's also the people that stick their heads in the sand and draw the line in the sand and refuse to change their mind at all. So, I don't know. I think that I don't know. That's a good imponderable though. I'll have to dwell on that.
All right. I hope we don't give you nightmares, keep you up all night trying to figure that out. But, so we got to the point of you've answered the call, even if it's reluctantly, taking multiple times. And now it's a time of action. It's the time of picking up your metaphorical sword, or a real sword if you're in some sort of dangerous situation, I suppose.
Right. Exactly. So then at the end is the 2 L's of the call, lessons learned. So that's if anyone's looking at, or if you reference the hero's journey, you come back from beyond the unknown. You go in the initial part of the hero's journey, you leave the known world for the unknown. And then you come back at the end having gained something like, Bilbo comes back with the ring and keeps it, takes it from Gollum, and he comes back wiser and more experienced, and he has treasure, and he's richer now. So in those stories, but the metaphor for us, those stories are kind of, metaphorical for, you come back with wisdom. It's the treasure is in the spirit. So you come back, and so what are the lessons learned? So, if you control your temper in a situation where you used to lose it, and again, this all ties in with the thing that I really like, a little tangent here, about this chunking into 3 parts of the hero's journey. If you're familiar with the work of Charles Duhigg and The Power of Habit, that book he wrote, every habit has a cue, that something cues a habit that starts. There's a routine that you follow, and then there's the reward. So it's like, I see cookies, that's the cue. I'm going to go eat a cookie, that's the routine. And then the sugar rush is the reward. But Duhigg teaches us that you can tinker with that. And I feel like it aligns very well, and not coincidentally, with these 3 major sections of the hero's journey. So, that reward at the end, if you change your routine, and you can tinker with your routines, Duhigg says, and change a bad habit, the lessons learned at the end is like, I have strength, I have power I have agency over my whims and my cravings. I can do this. So, but if you're in a life situation, you can come out at the other end satisfied and in control of your life in a healthy way, versus, the old routine that you used to have and how your actions you used to take. You would flip people off on the road and have road rage and, argue with your wife, but if you take that different path, you take the growth mindset path, you take a better action, and if you're mindful of this process, so this framework that makes you mindful of those 3 steps, I have these things that trigger me. How can I take a different action? And that lesson learned at the end is I am a different person now. I have grown. I am strong. I am in control. So, and this is honestly what I went through time and time again, with my own mental health struggles.
So that treasure is something that kind of you can stand on as your personal growth, your spiritual growth, your discovering you're stronger than you thought, that you could overcome something, be it as small as not being furious while you're driving to work, or fulfilling that big project, or helping your kids figure something out. And again, I love the notion of just seeing every challenge, everything, oh crap, I got to do that moment as, what if this is my call to adventure, and how can I make this adventurous in this moment, and what treasure can I discover within me or externally to me based on the situation.
Yeah, and sometimes if you react to a situation differently, what if at work people are used to you being someone who goes, crap, here we go, and like a negative Nancy or whatever, and what if what if you decide to make this different choice because you have this call to action that you recognize consciously, you make a different choice, and then part of the treasure you get at the end is not just self-satisfaction, but people start treating you better. People start coming to you for, as someone that they see that they can admire versus someone that they want to avoid.
Yeah.
So
cool.
all of these treasures, yeah.
This reminds me of one that maybe like a decade ago in corporate America, and I thought I hated my job. I thought it hated everybody else, and everyone's always emailing me and asking me questions. These idiots, and I consciously reframed it like, all right, what if I take each interaction as an opportunity to teach this person, instead of assuming you're an idiot? Like, oh, hey, can I help you learn this so you know what to do next time? And that shifted everything. And again, I felt the treasure from that, and just, I feel better. And people would say, hey, thanks, and that's where I really discovered a joy of teaching and helping people and all that kind of stuff. But it was, it all came out of, I was sick of being furious by being emailed the same question over and over.
Right.
So we can reframe everything. But so we talked about the cycle, we've broken it down. Since you can be broken it down and you can define it fairly clearly, does that mean this is all can happen just quickly and easily?
I mean, as far as becoming a new habit, no. I mean, no. I mean, I think it's like anything in life that's worthwhile. It's going to take practice. It's just like you don't go to the gym once or twice a year and expect great results. It's, this is a lifelong discipline. It's a lifelong practice. And honestly, this is why superhero movies and other stories, all these stories that we tell, especially superhero movies today, they tell this story over and over and over till we're kind of honestly getting sick of it, but I mean, this is why it's been told in this form with this pattern for millennia, is because we need to be constantly reminded and constantly retaught, because our ancient ancestors knew that they didn't know, they didn't have the science that we have today that say, oh, well, we've discovered in the brain the negativity bias, the paleo-mammalian cortex is the ancient brain and the neocortex is the higher center of the brain. They didn't know this stuff, but they saw human behavior. And they said, okay, we keep seeing people behaving like this. Sometimes people can rise up and overcome this instinct. Sometimes they can't, and that's why we tell heroic stories over and over and over and over and over. It's because we need the reminder. We need to tell this over and over because we easily forget, and we let the everyday rigmarole and our short-sightedness of our monkey part of ourselves overcome us. So it's, we need to be reminded of the better angels of our nature. Cool. And that's why these stories and this structure is eternal.
So do you think anyone can develop an heroic mindset?
Oh yeah, everyone can. It's as far as I'm concerned, from whatever source you think it's from, whether it's divinely given or if you're more scientifically minded, there's something in us genetically that makes us have this urge. to be communal and to protect each other and uplift each other despite all of our differences. Anyone can learn it. It's part of it's part of each of our inheritances as a human. It's our spiritual and genetic inheritance and birthright as human beings to have this potential in all of us.
So why do you think everyone doesn't embrace this mindset?
It's a big part of it is the negativity bias, this urge to, and again, the negativity bias, the fight flight response was evolved to protect us. It means well, and it's very strong, and it's been scientifically delved into. You need, off the top of my head, I can't remember how much more positive thoughts you need to counter a negative thought, but it's asymmetric. The relationship between positive and negative thoughts is asymmetric. So it takes a lot, because if you think about it, Andy, when you feel good, you kind of just chill and you relax and everything's right with the world. It doesn't put you in a fighting, scrappy mood if you're comfortable, but when you're angry or upset or stressed out, it's so much more aggressive and strong and rises up, and it demands to be seen and heard. So that's why the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's why the loudest idiots in our society, sorry, I'm trying to be more understanding of human beings, never mind. The loudest people in our society are the ones that are the most fear-driven. So it's the fear that overcomes our better nature. It's the narrow-mindedness, and that manifests itself and infects cultures and societies. And it's if we mindlessly follow our programming of society that is driven by our fear-based selves and the fear part of our instinct, when people mindlessly follow that for most of the time, the sake of comfort and certainty, again, the certainty siren, the trap of certainty, that's what causes us to see each other as less than and to commit atrocities. So but that's the choice that we are always, as a species, always are forced to make. And that's what our civilizations have always tried to remind us. So that's why it's very important for us to remember that we have this legacy of heroism that we can all rise to.
There's it's like you call it the siren call. So there's this easy lure of staying small, staying afraid, and not daring to go over that horizon, and not daring to challenge your own thoughts or habits. Yeah.
It's the path of least resistance. It's the path of least resistance. I have mine. I have my little cave with my food, and everyone I love is provided for, and that's okay. Those things are okay. Again, we're not ridiculing that instinct, but we tend to forget, especially in our modern age where our technology has made us so self-sufficient. We have forgotten that we, for most of our existence as a species, depended on each other for life and death. Like, if we went one day without communicating and cooperating with our fellow human beings, bad things would happen. So it's only with the Industrial Revolution and cheap energy from oil and all those things is that we have this pretty wonderful illusion where you can go in your house and you can sit there and play video games and watch TV, and you can have someone Uber you food, and the only interaction you have is like with the food guy, and you could sit Netflix and chill for weeks and weeks and weeks and work from home remotely, and you could never potentially leave your cave anymore. Yeah. So we have this, but then these smug people will sit in their houses and go, nah, people suck. Look what they're doing on TV. Yeah, look, people are terrible. We've allowed ourselves this illusion of, I don't need anybody else, whatever. And we think we can judge other people and say, but listen, man, the lights go out, something happens. What happens when disaster strikes? We immediately look for help from other people. So that illusion is easily shattered.
Yeah, and people usually come together in the face of every disaster, natural or man-made. People come together.
And you can be cynical about it and say, oh, it's just for convenience. It's, the selfish gene or whatever, but no. And here's the thing. People think people are so terrible, but everyone talks about how proof needs to be self-evident. You have to prove the scientific method that, the evidence needs to be before your eyes. The best evidence for us being geared more towards cooperation than destruction of each other is the fact that I'm in a house right now. We're talking on this miraculous technology to each other. An inherently destructive, non-cooperative species that most people, a lot of people in our culture, especially very bitter men that you and I have talked to personally, think we're so terrible as a species. None of this would exist. None of the houses, the technology, or the wonders that we have in the 21st century would have existed. We would have wiped ourselves out ages ago. It's Occam's razor. It's the simplest answer is the correct one. It is self-evident that the fact that we have all these wonderful technologies and wonderful things is that points to we are more geared towards cooperation than destruction of each other. But it's the negativity bias tricks us. That's the devil, and has always existed. The devil is sort of the seducer, and it tells us, like, you don't need other people. Other people are shit, blah, you know. So it's that negativity bias has always been with us, and it's that tempting voice that you don't need anybody else. You can just be self-sufficient. You can just take that person's stuff. And yes, horrible things exist, and we have committed horrible things in the name of this negativity bias and the social structures we've created based on fear. But it is outweighed by our instinct, and unfortunately it has over time, over the millennia. We have needed atrocities and crises and natural disasters to wake us up from that negativity bias. But when we do, we create wonderful things. But, and again, that even though it's subsumed under a lot of negativity bias, we do default ultimately back to cooperation and care for each other.
Right. So it's kind of the the positive aspect, the upside of bad things is the collective of humanity kind of coming together, and all right, we've got to come up with a better solution, or we'll comfort the people that are injured, and or whatever, however it may present.
Yeah, and that's like the third part of this cycle. So there's the mindset, there's the pattern, the call cycle, and then there's movement, motion. Like, you need to get out into life. You can't sit and fester in your cave and sit in judgment of other people, because that illusion, we need to be in motion. That illusion that we're separate and that we are above each other and that we're self-sufficient, we're islands unto ourselves, it needs to be shattered. So we need to go out, and when we go out and we move among other people, that illusion is easily shattered. So that's why the third part of is, really the hero's journey is about motion. It's about movement. You can't learn anything new. You can't do something new. You can't accomplish something new in your life with the same old thinking and the same old pattern of your life. If you want things to change and grow, you need to hold all new thinking, a new situation, movement. You need to get away from what was and move into something new and get out of your comfort zone.
Right. So that makes sense. That again, without answering the call, you haven't engaged in any action, any motion, as you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's inherent. And again, every kind of graphic about the hero's journey, it's a circle. It's not. Well, I guess a dot is a small circle, but you have to take the path. You have to go. You have to do something. It takes action, and we are physical beings. We are made to move, and I find when the times when I've been depressed and miserable and thought the world sucked and people were horrible, especially myself, I just sat in a lump. I didn't move.
Exactly.
But often physical activity is one of the best things that can help us, improve our mood and our outlook.
Yeah, and mental activity. Well, we're not just restless physically; we're restless mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And that dynamic tension and that restlessness should be celebrated. But again, are you taking a fear-based approach to your restlessness that you were born with, that you were blessed with? Are you taking a fear-based approach and saying, "Oh, that's just because I'm not settled and I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life, and I'm a screw up because I'm always restless"? Like, no, you're supposed to be. That's why it is a circle. The hero's journey is a circle, because you leave the ordinary world, you go learn some wisdom, you get out of your comfort zone, you come back to the regular world, and eventually you get restless again. Yeah. So you need to take that journey again and again and again. Otherwise, you're sitting there and you're not growing, you're not changing. So we are growth machines. We are made to grow and change and develop, and through connection with other people. And the mental pathology of hatred towards other human beings is a direct result of being stagnant, sitting still, and becoming an evil dictator of your own mind and in your own head and in your own little section of the world.
So even more than just the hero's journey being a circle, it's really a spiral and an upward spiral. You're traveling in a circle, but you're starting at any point is higher. It's elevated than where you really began.
Yeah, and that's a definite, that's, part of positive psychology is we want people in positive psychology. There's regular psychology, traditional psychology is trying to get you back to neutral, really. It's treating a pathology, it's treating mental disease, and that's necessary. But then as positive psychology is a complement, it takes what is good about human beings as far as our positivity, and it studies, positive psychology for the last few decades as a discipline has studied what makes when people are flourishing and happy and they have good well-being, or we want to study that. So people started studying that and saying, okay, what takes people north of neutral? And part of that upward spiral is part of the concept of positive psychology, where it's like, yes, these things, you can go on an upward spiral, or we all know what it's like to be on a downward spiral, right? Where you just kind of reinforce the negative things with a fixed mindset. But the growth mindset is an upward spiral. And it's, okay, I just finished this one journey. I normally would have ignored that little lady who always crosses the street, and she almost gets hit by a car every day. So I went over today, made it different. I answered the call to adventure. I went over there, helped her across the street, and wow, I feel great about myself, so that's an upward spiral, and then that'll lead to more and more positive actions in your life, hopefully.
Cool.
We have setbacks, and you have to build setbacks into the journey. You have to be prepared for setbacks, and that's what the hero's journey and heroic stories teach us. Heroes always hit a low point at some point, or they're down, and it can be low or really low. But the hero's journey teaches us that there's a path out, and you're going to come back to a point. You're going to say, "Oh, I feel good about myself," and then a few days will pass. You're like, "Oh crap, I feel crap about myself." So the journey has to start again. When you're feeling down, that's generally a sign that you're like, "Okay, I need to shake things up."
Freaking journeys. So I feel like we've touched on it with this upward spiral, but so what's the end result of living with this mindset of living the heroic life?
A better world. Next question. No, I mean, seriously, it's that really is it, is if more people just stopped passively consuming heroic stories, like, oh God, I want to go see Avengers 25 and blah. Like, yeah, maybe we're getting kind of overly conditioned with all how we're being glutted with our own superhero mythology of the present. But I mean, honestly, though, in all seriousness, yes, if more people led a more mindful life, I know it sounds cliche, and we led a life where we prioritized being heroic, even in the tiniest of ways. And again, heroism is not saving someone from a crisis situation and life or death and sacrifice. Like, those things could be a result of acting heroically. You can give it all, like it's soldiers in wartime. Yes, you can make the ultimate sacrifice of your life, but that's not really the intention, especially in military training. Military training is not about not being a kamikaze, unless you're, Japanese pilots in one specific part of history in World War II. To be a trained warrior is to survive. So to be a hero is to fight and live to see another day, and to struggle another day, and to help people in another day. So,
and to look at it another way, and it's not only putting your life on the line, it's putting your beliefs on the line, putting your fear on the line. It's putting some other aspects at risk.
Yes, there is risk. Yeah, there is risk of judgment from others. There's risk of harm. There's risk of ridicule. There's even risk of, that thing that our ancient ancestors, the monkey mind, hates, is being ostracized, because ostracism from the group was death. And our monkey mind still believes that. And that's why we're so afraid of, being different and being nonconformist. And that's why the pressure to conform is because you don't want to be out group. You don't want to be outside of the group and banished. So, yeah, so sometimes but our ancestors knew that if we all started to become insular and became little islands unto ourselves, we would die off. So cooperation is vital. Unless some other amazing development in technology makes us truly, like matter replication or whatever, I don't know. These things might change, but we're not there yet. So
cool. So like I told before we started the show that I had reread all the articles just before we started talking, and that I really got a lot of it, because I had been the last episode of Real Men Fear talking about when the going gets tough, and I'm kind of on this hero's journey in my spiritual path and progression with the mystery school, And it sometimes just raises up every fear and doubt I ever had. And I'm like, why am I doing this? But this really helped me. I hope it helped everyone else listening. And visit realmenfeel.org in the show notes of this, and I'll be sure and we'll link to all 4 articles that we're referencing in this. But do you want to share other ways that people can get in touch with you, find more information about what you're up to?
Yeah, you can go to livethehero.com, and that'll give you, on the front page, there's links to videos of me speaking about this. There's, my blog on that page. I've been doing a lot of work with Good Men Project, which you have as well. So there's links to my articles there on Good Men Project. So I've been doing a lot of stuff just geared towards men and the hero's journey. This is where, and that's where I posted these articles, but like you said, you'll have them in the show notes. But yeah, go to livethehero.com, reach out, and we'll talk heroism.
Cool.
Anytime.
You mentioned positive psychology a number of times, and you mentioned you work on something. Is there anything you can tease us about your personal journey? Anything of expression you'll be able to share soon? Or
so for positive psychology, I'm currently delving into that and incorporating that into the hero's journey mythology stuff, and with Live the Hero. So I'm actually coming out. I'm developing a program that's sort of an offshoot of everything that I'm calling Gear Up. So Gear Up for guys and getting guys geared up. So the metaphor is, getting gear on, getting your gear together and kind of using these tools that we just talked about tonight, or also getting into gear, like a car metaphor, getting yourself into gear. So I'm developing this kind of other alternative to Live the Hero that's really geared towards guys, and how we can take the positive psychology intervention, the tools and heroism, and so that's the first time I've mentioned that publicly. So, but again, and the up is obviously up, like the upward spiral.
Yeah.
But gear is, I wanted to make an acronym out of it, like gratitude, empathy, awareness, resilience, but it can stand for whatever you want. But it really is that metaphor of like gear, like getting in gear, getting in drive, and going forward with your life, and what kind of gear you're carrying into your life to prepare you for everyday adventures in your life. So
cool.
That's sort of like my next project. So I'm hoping to be able to offer that as like a program for just geared towards guys. There you go, geared towards guys. But yeah, so that's sort of like a complement, another facet of Live the Hero. So
cool,
working
awesome.
on that as well. So,
yeah, look forward to that coming to fruition and helping everyone else spiral up. And so Anthony, I forget what the number is at, but I think you're in. You might be in double digits now for show appearances. But thank you again for joining us. Thanks for all the work that you do, expressing yourself, sharing it, encouraging other men to step up, to take responsibility, and instead of diving into the negativity bias, confronting it and choosing something else. So I really appreciate your time and expertise.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on again, as usual, Andy. I appreciate it, man. Always
Cool.
a great time.
Beautiful. And everyone, thanks for listening. Wherever you're listening to the show, please post a rating, a review, give it a share, a comment, and also we'd love to hear from you. Visit realmenfeel.org, see the show notes with all the links to Anthony's articles. Check us out on Facebook, send us feedback. We'll talk to you again soon, and be good to yourself and answer the call.
That's right.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.